I think there's a common misconception amongst all indie filmmakers and my fellow cinematographers that talent will somehow make you successful within the film industry. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but just so we're all up to snuff, talent actually only takes you so far. I believe our real job as directors of photography is to be problem solvers and facilitate and guide your entire camera department as well as your entire G&E team, and ultimately help the director create their vision, not yours. I know, as hard as that can be sometimes, depending on, experience levels and things like that, but you still are not the director, you're just the director of photography. So if you can do all of that while saving production both time and money, trust me when I tell you, you will be highly successful as a director of photography. And that's it. That is the reality of it. Thank you for watching the show. Tap, like, and subscribe. With all seriousness, I really do believe that our real talent is problem solving, and the ability to create cinematic, beautiful images, that's just bonus, right? That is certainly something that will help you stand out and promote yourself all over social media. But at the end of the day, the reason why producers and clients and the powers to be want to keep working with you and rehiring you and recommending you to other powers to be that will hire you and keep using you is ultimately directly related to how they remember you on set. And people that are on set that are providing the cash flow, they're not so much looking at the talent that you're exuberating, but they're actually more looking at your problem-solving abilities, your ability to be a team leader at the same time as well as being a collaborator as well as a leader, and your general overall attitude. And that is going to be the direct result of how successful you are, as long as you're not a complete asshole to work with. Part of being a successful problem solver starts at pre-production. The location scout is definitely part of that pre-production process. So today I'm going to be sharing with you all my favorite things that I bring with me on location scouts, but also I use them as well on the day of the shoot as well. If you're thinking like, oh man, I'm not going on location scouts yet, and I get it about 60% of the time, there is no location scout. Trust me, these tools are still highly beneficial on the day. Now I want to preface this video by saying that this channel has never been sponsored by anyone or anything, and I like to keep it that way so I can be completely 125% unbiased as possible. The only real sponsor of this channel, if you wanted to call it that, is of course the Dog Times Patreon, which is really an awesome exclusive virtual clubhouse for all of my indie filmmakers out there. Now, if you are on the Patreon, be sure you check out this week's behind the scenes breakdown of day 11 for the Netflix spec pilot that I was the DP on, as well as coming up this week, we are finally diving into chapter 2 of the Master Shots. So shout out to all of my Dog Times Patreon members, and a special thanks to this month's Patreon producer, David Carroll. However, the freest way to support the show is to just tap the subscribe button and the notification bell. The tools that I'm going to be talking about today, I use them on a daily basis because I actually enjoy using them and they make my life easier on set. I'm not sharing this with you because someone is paying me to talk about it. Now, the first couple of tools that I use are available to everyone, everywhere, instantly, because they are apps inside of your phone. Artemis Pro. Now, this is an app that I talk a lot about. Most of you are already using this, but for those of you that don't know, it's a wonderful viewfinder app that has every camera and aspect ratio and format that specific camera offers, as well as an entire library of lenses, both spherical and anamorphic. It has virtual stand-ins, so you can be creating storyboards on the fly while you're out there on the location scout, because you are also able to take snapshots within the app. One of my favorite features of Artemis Pro is when you take a picture inside of the app, it stores the exact coordinates of where that picture was taken. And that can definitely come in clutch. So a real-world example of this just happened this past fall, where a director was requesting a specific item to be sent to a certain location. And because this location was out in the middle of nowhere, the production team was a little confused about where exactly to send this requested item. And then I remembered, hey, Artemis Pro has the coordinates burned in, so I just texted them one of the grabs from Artemis Pro and directed their attention to the lower right-hand corner of the picture where the exact coordinates of that specific spot was. Problem solved. Sunseeker. Now, I'm well aware, as I'm sure you are as well, that there is a wide variety of sun tracking apps available out there. For a bit, I was using Helios Pro, which is actually made by the same company that makes Artemis Pro, and sometimes Helios is fun because there's a little virtual finger that will point exactly where the sun is and where it's going. There was another one kind of like that I was using for a bit. I think it was called Sun Tracker AI or something like that. However, I just find Sunseeker much more simpler to use. It loads faster. It doesn't, suck a lot of power off the towers. I don't know how else to explain it. It just seems to work very quickly when I need it to work. And for me, sometimes simplicity is best. And Sunseeker is rad because you can quickly do an overhead shot of any location. And when you do this, you can instantly see where the sun is, where it's coming from, where it's going, where the sunbeams are, what direction you're going to be backlit or frontlit, and where the light will land on any specific spot at any given time of day. And the feature to jump ahead on the calendar is super clutch as well. So this Sunseeker app is extremely beneficial for planning any day exteriors or even day interiors as well, depending on if you want to be working off of the windows. It's going to help you schedule your entire day around the sun, which is crucial for exposure continuity or for backlight or to avoid a frontlit situation, and certainly for planning to shoot during golden hours or blue hours. pCam Pro. Now, pCam is by far my most used app for filmmaking. You have an entire library of tools, not only for camera, but also for lighting. And in fact, the lighting tools are the ones I use the most. Now, I've already done a video a few years back on how I use the pCam Pro app, so if you're brand new here, I'll leave a link down in the description below. But in a nutshell, that video is demonstrating how I use both the scene illumination tool along with the light coverage tool. And that's basically how I create different lighting packages for any specific job. And it's also very handy if you are shopping around for lights and if you wanted to compare the newest, coolest light with the lights that you already own, because, all you need to do is plug in the photometrics of any light and then you can compare the two. Not only that, but you can also compare the amount of spread or beam angle as well. It's just a very useful app. It is $30 if you want to pay for the Pro version, which I highly recommend, but it's just a one-time purchase. You never get asked to do any purchase ever. I've had the app for it's gotta be easily 4 years, if not more. And I paid that $30 and it's never asked me to ever ask for any more money again. So it's $30 very well spent. And again, I have no affiliation with them, so I could care less, no skin off my back. I'm just telling you, I love it. So now let's get into actual tools. Bosch Blaze. So this is a little tiny professional laser measuring device. And this actually has a couple different uses. But in terms of the Scout, this comes in handy for measuring the distance of a window to how far away the talent will be either from that window or say maybe a key light. And this is where something like a laser measurer ties in perfectly with that pCam Pro app. Because when you are building a light kit for a specific job, you need to know a couple important things about the lights that you plan to use. And it's more than just simply output. What's often overlooked is the beam width or the throw of the light. In other words, you may have a light with a crap ton of output, but if it's a little narrow beam angle with a small amount of throw or spread, well, now you'll have to start figuring out what you're going to do to expand that spread, and that inevitably will result in you using some sort of diffusion frame. And once you introduce a frame of diffusion, now you're going to significantly start losing output, because every type of diffusion combined with the strength of that diffusion has a different amount of light loss. And these are things that really should be considered when building a light kit for any job. And yet no one on YouTube seems to care enough to be talking about these things. I mean, outside of the obvious people like Andrew Locke and Luke Servold, of course, but I guess that makes sense because they are professional gaffers with a long career. But in the big leagues, people are talking about this all the time, certainly in the G&E team, as well as over on the Dog Times Patreon. In fact, I even made a PDF a long time ago called the Gaffer's Cheat Sheet, and I do my best to keep it updated constantly with a lot of fixtures and even rags. Now, another very useful function of this little laser measure is to quickly measure the height of your dolly or tripod. And that's because, let's say you're doing coverage at a dinner table or a park bench, and sometimes you would want the height of the lens to match for each camera angle. But another bonus of this little tool is you can just turn it on, and now you have a little laser pointer, and this is quite nice if you're just like, you don't want to get your lazy ass up, or you're busy doing something else and you just need to point at something and say, yeah, fix that over there, so that's nice as well. So it's really like a 2-in-1 kind of tool. Now, another nice thing of this is for all of my first ACs out there who want to take a quick measurement from the film plane to the focal plane. If you need precise focusing marks. Sekonic Speedmaster L58DU, otherwise known as the light meter. So, as I've said in past recent videos, this thing is always strapped to my hip. And I most definitely take it with me on the location scouts as well. And the main reason for that is because I really like to figure out what Shane Hurlbut refers to as room tone. And what he's talking about there is the ambient light level in the space. And why I like to know what the room tone is on the scout is because it's good to know where the space is naturally living at already on its own. And I feel like usually, lower budget DIY filmmakers like myself, that's more important to know than I imagine some big, huge team. Because, us lower budget guys, we're limited to a very small package. So it's very important for me to see like, okay, how much light am I gonna have to bring in to add to this spot? Or more often than not, it's usually like, okay, how much light level am I gonna have to take away from this spot, right? How much negative fill, how many scraps of Duvetine can we wrangle up? Let's get out the 12x12s, and let's see what we can do to bring some of this ambient room tone down. And of course, you don't know about these things unless you go to the location scout, or you show up on the day and then you're like, oh no, we didn't bring enough negative fill. It's also just a great tool to use when you're working with a real G&E team. Nothing communicates more efficiently than speaking in foot candles or lux. Sekonic Spectromaster. So if you already have been on this channel for a minute, certainly if you've seen my more recent videos, you already know my obsession with this. This is hands down one of the best investments I've ever made. It is the Sekonic Spectromaster C800U, or otherwise known as a color meter. And this is insanely useful. I use it to get proper white balance. I use it for matching lights from different manufacturers. I use it to test lights, and as I've said in the past, I have yet to come across 2 LEDs from the same manufacturer that are 100% accurate. I've already spoken about this in a few different videos, so if you are new here, links are down below. The main reason I like this is because using something like this, knowing how inaccurate LED lights are, this allows me to instantly dial in a fixture to any color temperature with any tint value, and even RGB fixtures with hue and saturation as well. Now, where this comes in handy for the location scout is, again, it ties in with that room tone, right? So if you know you're gonna be working off the windows, you wanna see where the room is already naturally sitting color temperature-wise. Or even if the production designer or the director knows that they want certain practicals to be used within the shot that are already existing in the location. Here in LA, we have many spots to rent that are already full of interesting neon lights and things like that. So it's good to get an idea of what's the saturation level of those lights, what's the color coming off of those lights, how is that going to influence our talent, regarding skin tones and things of that nature. So once I get back from the location scout and I have all the light levels and I have the numbers, I have the distance of the laser measure, and I know the kind of ambient room tone, and I know the light, how much, what kind of T reading or f-stop reading I'm getting from where talent will hopefully be standing, or, hopefully the director is somewhat experienced a little bit to have the wherewithal to block in advance, right? That is kind of the whole point of the location scout, right? It's always fun when you get there and the director's just standing there. So knowing all that information, the distances, the light levels, I take all of those numbers and I plug them into the pCam Pro app, and that allows me to use my gaffer's cheat sheet and start figuring out what lights would help us out, be the most beneficial, what rags I need to use. It was, because I've never been a fan of just like load up everything in the van and you just show up with everything. And, when you have a little minivan package like mine, that isn't really ideal. So I like to really cater to the specific job. Now, obviously, when you can't do a location scout, then you're like, do you have pictures of the spot? Do we have an idea of what's going on? Do I have a 360-degree view of it? Can we pull it up on Google Maps? I start digging around quickly. So Sometimes you do have to show up with everything, but generally I don't like to do that. Now I know what you're thinking, you're like, oh man, you don't want to back yourself in a corner when you're already low budget, and I do get that, but then again, you know, I'm so anal about pre-production that I've never been in a situation where I go, dang, I wish I had that. I just don't, you know. I've built my kit around enough versatility to always be ready, and that does tie in with the pre-production. Even if it's something that I am completely going in blind on, I do have a basic kit ready to go. So once you've figured out, you know, your little kit that you're gonna bring, now I can jump on my iPad or my MacBook Pro and use Shot Designer and start creating some shot designs, or more commonly referred to as overheads. And Shot Designer is awesome for just whipping up things really quick, and you can instantly share it with your entire team. You know, you just generate PDFs. I take screenshots of it, just save it to photos and just mass text those to my gaffer or my crew. It's just awesome. And because it can be used on both the MacBook and the iPad, it's interchangeable. So sometimes it might be a little easier to design it on your MacBook, but then if the apps are synced, you'll open it up on your iPad and it's automatically in there. Shot Lister. So I believe it's Shot Lister Pro, maybe something like that now. It is an awesome app, it really is. It's expensive, I think it's expensive. It's kind of like an annual fee to use it, which I don't quite understand why that is, but I think why they charge annually for that is because it's kind of constantly working off of the cloud. So it's really nice for just instantly creating shot lists on the iPad. I mean, it's super easy to use, and you can generate PDFs. You can just instantly email it off, send it to your entire crew. But what's really cool about it, talking about the cloud interface and that, is not only can you make a shot list with it, but you also make the shooting schedule. So you'll have it on set with you, you know, if everyone has it on their phones or their iPad or whatever, and you know, you're in discussion with the first AD and you realize like, oh, we gotta move this shooting schedule around. You can do it, and everyone that's on the app with you, when they open it up, it automatically updates. So it's really nice for having a real-time updated digital shot list, rather than everyone running around and be like, oh yeah, we switched this around just so you know, or you know, having to reprint and waste a bunch of paper or something like that. Those days are gone. So I think that's why they kind of charge like an annual fee to keep it all synced like that. So the last tool I want to talk about is something that is completely free, and it's called communication. Now this is something we talk about all the time over on the Patreon, and certainly in our private Discord chat. And you know, I appear kind of young, I have like an interesting voice. By the way, everyone that has always shit talked about my voice, that has only ever happened since I started a YouTube channel back in 2019. I always thought it was funny when people would make comments about not hitting puberty yet or has his balls dropped yet. I always thought the joke's on them, because little do they know that I had an entire career in voiceover acting.
How's that supposed to mean? And what's wrong with my costume?
I was the voice of a PBS cartoon. Most recently, I was the voice of a lead character of a Lionsgate film. You know, so it's just funny to me to be like, oh, really? You know, audiobooks. I mean, the list goes on and on. With that being said, you know, I've spent enough time in this industry, and I am a little bit jaded, and my patience has grown quite thin. And for me, my skill of communication has gotten a lot better. And what I mean by that is I just could care less about sugarcoating anything anymore. I just don't. I am very blunt and frank with everyone on set. It's just how I am. It's just how I've always been for quite some time. And I think it's better to be that way. Now, you don't, you know, there's a certain finesse to it, obviously. You know, and sometimes even my wife will be like, ooh, you know, maybe you shouldn't say it like that. And it's because I am so frank and I am so blunt. But I think that is crucial. The reason why I'm like that at the end of the day is because I do not care if they hire me or not. And I think that's the best mentality to have. Because I will tell you, as soon as I switched and I went into that about 3, maybe 4 years ago, it's been smooth sailing. Yeah, you still get rough jobs, you're still doing DIY low budget stuff, sometimes you do cool stuff, but it is smooth sailing. Why? Because I don't have to lie to someone and be like, oh yeah, we can totally do that. And then the whole time you're just full of stress, you're breaking your back, everyone's looking at you like, why are we doing this, Justin? You know, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So you gotta be real upfront with everybody. The TLDR there is, look, if you know you can't deliver, don't say you can when you know deep down that you can't. And it's okay to tell the reasons why. In fact, it's important that you tell the reasons why. So then everyone's on the up and up. And that's what I'm talking about. Complete 100% transparency, full communication. Stephen Hawking said it best. I know I've said this before on this channel. All we need to do is keep talking. But stop being critical assholes. Take the criticism that you want to share with all the other artists in the world and start putting that on yourself. That's what I do. I don't care what position you are on set, all of this applies. In terms of communication, it all applies, right? Never be afraid to stand up for yourself. Never be afraid to say why you can't do something. Never be afraid to, say X, Y, and Z. This is what the reality of the situation is. What I mean by that is, if it's my own work, yeah, I can piss all over my own work all day long. But if they're requesting something that I know they can't do based upon their budget and the limited crew, then I tell them that's why. I'll say, yeah, I would love to do that, but I would need this, this, and this. Can we get that? And if they say no, I go, oh, okay. So then I brainstorm, and then I come up with another idea. I problem solve a more cheaper option. Can you do this and this and this? And then we can do it. And they either say yes or no, right? But after that, your hands are tied, and you have to tell them that, No, I mean, I gave you another option. You can't do that option. Maybe you Google, maybe find an either cheaper option. You say, oh, what about this? They still say no. You go, okay, I'm going to try my best by doing this, but just so you know, we probably won't be able to get the results because we just don't have the means to do it, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not going to hurt anyone's feelings, right? You were real. And here's the thing. If people stop working with you because of how real you are, then I would say you don't want to work with those people anyways. And with that, that is a wrap.
All right.
Here already?
Hold on, guys, hold on. So what is the, I'm just confused about the,
I'll get it with you.
No, I'm just trying to figure out, so the idea is like, you think he's talking to himself? Is that why you need to be there?
She sees him. He's talking to himself.
Yeah, I know, but like reality is she could hear him there or there. To me, it's like,
Okay.
what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or is it like an actor thing? I'm honestly just asking.